Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. Am I audible? Clear? Thank you. So today we're talking about, actually last week in the class, at one point we were referring to the incident of Will Smith at the Oscars. And I had said we can copy his rap or some of the good things that he's done, but we don't copy the slap. And that got so much reaction that that's the title of today's talk. And first off, I'd like to start with saying I have, this is in no way any judgment of Will Smith, because who are any of us to judge his journey? And this is just an incident that we can refer to as an example for us to explore some of the concepts that we would like to understand better in light of the scriptures. And so it's definitely not a talk about him or the incident as much as it is going to be a reflection on how we can live our lives. And we tend to emulate people. And so when people we admire and look up to behave in a certain way, then that becomes a kind of a example of whether we want to follow, or even if we don't want to follow, it's still an example. And so based on the incidents, there's three main points I'm going to explore. And the first one is how one action can so significantly change our lives. And the second point is going to be insult itself, right? And how we deal with it and how we react to it. And lastly, attachment, because we can see these three very distinctly in this one act that has happened. Attachment to any loved one, invoking different emotions in us and provoking us to behave in a particular way. So coming back to the first thing, that just one action can so significantly change our lives. And how, as social beings, we can be so judgmental and so non-forgiving of certain things, especially when it's portrayed in a certain way. And yet, every single one of us have made mistakes. And as a teacher, we'll even say we're going to make mistakes on our journey of life. And when we make a mistake, the best we can do is pick ourselves up. If we've hurt somebody else, the best we can do is apologize and ask for forgiveness. And so I remember a few years ago, I was listening to some talks by Desmond Tutu, who's an amazing person and some beautiful concepts and very loving and very deep and profound. And he was in dialogue with Bill Clinton after Bill Clinton had already finished his regime as US president. His name is Bill Clinton, right? And it was a phenomenal discussion. Of course, Desmond Tutu is a profound man, but even Bill Clinton's contribution to this dialogue was so earnest and so sincere, and definitely he had thought about things, and he was well read and well informed, and there was a sense of earnestness in the whole thing. And so he had spoken about and he gave the example. So Desmond Tutu was talking about how we're more alike than we are different as human beings. And Bill Clinton gave the example of how when you look at our genes, so what's that? When the DNA, when we look at our DNA, then we are 98% the same DNA. And only 2% of our DNA is different. That's huge, like in terms of he can contribute to this concept of oneness and understand that little snippet. And, you know, I'm not so good with numbers and details, so I had forgotten what the numbers were. And so at some point I wanted to check. And so I Googled Bill Clinton's speech or something. And even before I typed Desmond Tutu's name, the only thing that came up on Google was it an affair or something he had? And there was article and article and interview and interview. And so here I am trying to find this beautiful, profound speech that he gave with Desmond Tutu. And all that comes up is his sexual activity. Until you go scroll, you have to scroll down to the next page in Google before you get to all the nice things he's done. And you know, how he's contributed and how he's given back to society. And so one event can tarnish a person so majorly. And so the necessity for us to be constantly present. And it seems like hard work, but actually on the spiritual journey, this is what we train ourselves to do. Be present. Notice what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. Notice what's going on outside. Act appropriately. Now, it seems like so much work that I have to just always be thinking this, but we're doing it all the time. We're doing it all the time. We look out, it's raining, take umbrella, right? We notice outside, we notice what we need to do based on the situation outside. It's very, very hot. Again, you might decide to take the umbrella, or, you know, sunscreen, or you make sure you're dressed appropriately. So we do it in terms of infrastructure, in weather and tangible things outside. But on the spiritual journey, we're doing it in terms of what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what's going on outside, what's going on inside, make sure it's appropriate. And when we cultivate this as a habit and it becomes a part of us, it actually happens quite effortlessly. It's like people who are very, very diligent about what they eat. After a while, it happens very diligently. They won't pick up certain items because they know it doesn't agree with them, or they have, decided to abstain from it. And it doesn't even become tempting. Like a vegetarian seeing meat, it's not even tempting. Because you've trained yourself and you think in a particular way and you'll reach for, and it will never be meat. And so it just becomes a part of you. It's not like I have to be it's not like it's hard work. I have to be vegetarian, I have to be vegetarian, it's just who we are. And so this same quality can be with a value. So if I train myself to be patient, then it just becomes more of who I am, and I become more aware of incidences that require me to be patient. And it might still be effort to be patient, but I'm aware that I need to be. Whereas when I'm not, the incident will come and go, and then maybe I didn't even notice how impatient I was. Or after the event's over, I think, oh, I could have done that differently. So we spend so much effort in terms of our diet. Like so many of our social events, when we listen to conversations at social events, of course, it's gossip. And then food. Should eat this, shouldn't eat this. This free, that free, everything free. And the calories or health. And so much we talk about it. Why? Because we want to be healthy. Or it could be vanity. We want to look good. But let's give us benefit of doubt and let's say we want to be healthy. So now when we want to be healthy, then we're talking so much about food and diet. How much of our mental space it consumes? Why? Because I want to be healthy. But body is just one part of us. Our mental health, and we've seen in this period of COVID, is huge. I mean, in the attempt to keep people physically healthy during this period of COVID, we've seen that mental health has suffered. People have been lonely, or they've been, depressed, or they feel isolated, they're scared. And we need to acknowledge that that's so much a part of who we are. And so well-being in terms of emotional, mental, spiritual. And so just as we're so conscious of what we eat, we can become conscious of what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And it's just an awareness. It's living in awareness. Like when I'm very, very tired, I'm likely to be more cranky and uncooperative with people. So if they ask me when I'm, in the beginning of the day and I'm energetic and I'm fresh, will you do X, Y, Z? Chances are I'll say yes, and I'll do more. I'll do X, Y, Z, and I'll do a few other things as well. Then I'm really tired and then the day is over and you say, Swamiji, will you do X, Y, Z? And then I'll say, no, cranky. So I'm aware that I do this. So when people are asking me things when I'm very tired, I'll warn them, you're going to get a no, don't ask now. That I haven't changed. I have it when I'm tired sometimes, depending on the situation. But awareness of it means I can manage it. Yeah. Awareness of it also, in a joking way, can warn the person, talk to me at some other time, so that neither of us are hurt by this situation. It's just an awareness of who we are so that we can manage ourselves. Exactly in the same way of awareness of our physical body, and we manage our food and our sleep and our exercise. And we've trained ourselves so well to do it at the physical level, but we don't pay enough attention to what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What's going on outside? And what's the most appropriate way to act? And this needs to be a constant in our life, because it takes just one incident. Sure, this is a big incident. And we won't know when it's going to happen. And even when we are diligent and we are sincere, we may slip. People make mistakes, and then we do the best we can from that point of when we make a mistake. And if time permits, maybe we can talk about that. But we'll stop here in terms of how to avoid this kind of extreme reaction that can be so painful for me. I mean, never mind that it's painful for everyone else. It's when we do something, we have to live with it. And so now one of the hardest things in this particular event for Will Smith that he's going to have to do is he's at some point he's going to have to forgive himself, which is, it's incredibly difficult. Doesn't matter what everyone else thinks, it will be what I think and what I feel. And me making peace with what it is that I have done. And so when we manage ourselves, that reaction can be reduced so that the consequences can be reduced. And even in terms of me then making peace with what I've done, when I've learned to be aware, when I've learned to monitor myself, at least there's a sense of effort being put in to prevent as much as possible. And so when we know we've done our best, it's easier to let go of something. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the actual insult. So what is insult? It's interesting when we ask this question. What is an insult? Because, our loved ones will say things to us all the time. And sometimes we laugh. But somebody else says that same sentence to us, and we feel so offended. So what is it the words that are an insult? Because the actual line said may not be perceived as an insult. Maybe it's the tone of voice, or maybe it's the look on the person's face, or what constitutes insult? When you and I feel we are being criticized. When you and I feel somebody is finding fault in who we are. And this is an interesting thing. Insult is when we feel somebody is finding fault in us. Do we have faults? Of course we do. So we have faults. And when somebody finds them or articulates them, we are insulted. It's not very rational, but that's what it is. So insult is more than somebody finding fault in me. Insult is me finding fault in me. Because if someone says something to me, yeah, so if I go back to the example of me being cranky when I'm tired, and if somebody says to me, "You're so cranky," I'm not insulted. Is it a fault? Yes. It's nicer to be sweet. We need variety also, though. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this shortfall. And so if somebody says it to me, even though it may be an insult, if I'm comfortable with it, I'm not insulted. So insult is not them finding the fault in me. It's me feeling that this aspect of me has a fault, or it's wrong, or it's not good, or it's inferior, or it's ugly, or it's in some way I have judged it, what my flaw or shortcoming or characteristic. Sometimes it's not even a flaw. Sometimes it's a characteristic that I have, or a personality trait or I have, or a habit that I have. I judge it to be unflattering. I judge it to be a criticism. This is why we react so much to insult. We react so badly to it because we feel it's true. Because if somebody says something about us and it's not true, would we react? Think about yourself when I ask these questions. Don't think about other people. Will you react? It can be, and I'll give examples that are non-controversial, even though Will Smith's example is very controversial. If I say to you, "You're always late," and it's not true, will you react? You could either say, "No, Swamiji, I was on time," and just correct me. "I was late today, but usually no." Or get defensive. "You're always finding fault in me." So if we get defensive, either we feel it's true or we feel this person doesn't like us. Because the statement's not true. Then I am being insulted by something else, not by the statement, by the person, or by feeling judged. And then, in terms of the spiritual journey, this is probably where it gets a little bit tricky. Do I need them to like me? So what they're saying is not true. I feel they don't like me, and so I feel insulted. Do I need them to like me? If I'm feeling insulted, I have decided I do. I've decided I need them to like me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be insulted. Statement's not true. You don't have to like me. I'll have no reaction. Insult is very much about what we want. We want to be liked. We want to be perceived in a certain way. And even deeper, we want to be a certain way. Now, those are two different things. We want to be perceived in a certain way, but we also want to be somebody who is intelligent, kind, witty, creative, all those things that we want to be. Okay. So we understood what is insult. And it's got so much to do with us. Surprise, surprise. In spirituality, really? 80 to 90% of what's happening has to do with us. We look within for happiness, look within for solutions, look within for just about everything. Okay, coming back to insult. Someone has insulted me and I am hurt. Fair. So we tend to react to insult in a very habitual way. Some of us, we get insulted and the reaction is aggression. Okay? The way to defend myself from insult, because we perceive insult as an attack to it's an attack to how we are being perceived and how we look, our status maybe. So because we're feeling attacked, aggression, and we lash out. So if somebody says something to us, we yell and scream back. And I'm sure you've all seen this. And that the discussion becomes highly heated. And sometimes the initial insult would have been like a banter, something playful over a dinner conversation. The person's insulted and now the dinner's over because this person's yelled another insult in return and is way like 3 times, 4 times more abusive than that initial insult because it's fueled with anger. So let's go back to what is insult. Insult is, I want people to like me and I want to be perceived in a different way, in a particular way. What is anger? When I don't get what I want. Right? It's as simple as that. So I got insulted. I didn't get perceived in a particular way. The person doesn't like me, angry. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ways in which we react to insult is anger. And this pretty much all of us will feel a certain amount of anger when we feel insulted because it's got so much to do with what I want. And so some of us will be very verbal and aggressive about our anger, and some of us will boil inside and not do anything about it outside because it's not our personality type, but we are boiling inside. Like, how dare they say that? How, they had no right to say that. And so the anger it's still there. It may not come out, but the anger is still there. And then the other thing, so that's one way in which we respond to insult. And then that, when we respond to insult in that way, it just becomes a habit. And so every time insult appears, out of habit, we react in that way. The second thing we do is somebody insults us and then we insult ourselves times 10. of what they insulted us. And so this can tie into earlier this month, I spoke about self-love and this voice in our head that's super critical, our inner critic. And so we receive an insult. And then because we think it's true, remember, so much of insult is because we think it's true. We ourselves know we are flawed. And so then we criticizing ourselves. Look, the whole world can see how I am so, and whatever it is that I am, unintelligent or uncreative or not efficient in what I do or not good at keeping relationships. And so judge myself really badly, somebody else insults me, and then just overplay the negative critical voice in our head to make ourselves feel so horrible about this shortcoming that we may possess. And then that's a downward spiral, which can lead to definitely a lot of sadness, isolation, but it leads to horrible self-esteem, which can fester. Being in that state of really low self-esteem just tends to fester, and it becomes this mindset of I'm not good enough. So some of us lash out at insult, as in the incident with Will Smith at this point in time, although at other points in time when he has been insulted, he has dealt with it differently. And then some of us fester to create low self-esteem. And then the other thing we can do with insult, which is the healthy way of dealing with insult, is look at it and ask ourselves 2 or 3 important questions. Firstly, is it true? This comment that is being said about us, is it true? So in this particular incident of the academy, the comment was that she had no hair, right? That was what was perceived as an insult. Is it true? Yes. So now what do I do? The insult has been said, and it's true. I have to first and foremost accept that it's true. Then I have to decide if I want to do anything about it. Maybe I want to change it. Maybe I don't want to change it. So sometimes when I am being cranky and something comes along and I'll think about it, because I'll be aware I'm being cranky. I'll tell, okay, snap out of it. We need to be present. And sometimes if I'm being cranky and somebody's saying something, I'll say, leave me alone. I want to be cranky. So acknowledging that it's true doesn't mean I have to necessarily change it. It's a choice. Do I want to change it? Yes, then by all means do. If I don't want to change it, well, that's our prerogative. Also, how much do I want to change it? Maybe just a little bit, right? Maybe a lot. But if someone said something that is true, we cannot hold it against them. we have to look at ourselves and how comfortable are we with this? Okay, we go back to the question, is it true? And it will be in varying degrees, right? If somebody says, you're so mean, am I mean? There'll be a little bit of meanness in me. So we have to have that, we have to measure and then introspect. How often am I mean? Why am I mean? To whom am I mean? On what occasion am I mean? We have to think of all of that. Am I okay with it? Sometimes we are. Sometimes we not. But then that's out. Now it's completely in the ball's in my court and I have full power to do with it whatever I want to do with it. Let's go back to, is it true? And the answer is no. It's not true. So now what do I do with it? Am I still feeling insulted? If I am, why? It's not true. I have to understand why I'm still feeling insulted. And if it's not true, and then I'm not insulted because it's not true, I'll be able to walk away from it or smile or act very dignified in that situation. Respond intelligently, calmly. So sometimes we have to step away from the incident and ask ourselves, is it true? But like I was saying in the beginning of today's talk, when we're living a spiritual life and we constantly practice awareness of ourselves, awareness of the world, we can ask ourselves, is it true? In that moment itself, know the answer and respond within ourselves and outside. Yeah. Just like we do with so many other things, right? If you're planning an event and if somebody says XYZ, do you need da 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 da? I know if I need it or not. And I can reply because it's work and it's all functional and I know what's going on. And so when I know what's going on with me, is it true? Is this insult true? I'll know straight away if it's true. What do I want to do about it? Apologize. Or what do I want to do about it? It's my, stand my ground. So, is it true? Is the first question. When I feel insulted, is it true? If it is, then I have to do something about it. If it's not, nothing need be done about it. Or like I said, you can correct the other person. If I accuse you of being late all the time, you can say, no, I'm not actually. And that's one of the things about this incident. They were saying he was taking a stand. We can take a stand. We can most certainly protect our name, the image we live, not show or portray, but actually live, protect our character. That's what the word would be. We can definitely make a stand that we don't think it's correct. They may reevaluate. We can offer evidence. But when we do, it won't be fueled by anger. When our speech and actions are fueled by anger, it has a very different flavor than when it's a intelligent, mature discussion. And the thing is, when somebody speaks in anger, I had heard Guruji say this in one of his talks, and he had heard it somewhere. I don't know who said it originally, that when we talk in anger, we talk very loud because the person feels very far away. There's no love in our heart, and so the person's pushed to a distance. And so because they feel far away, or I feel far from them, they feel far from me, we're talking loud. And then Guruji would say, and if you hear two people who have just fallen in love, talking, almost whispering, you can barely hear what they're saying, all their sweet nothings. Why are they so soft? Because in their hearts, they're so close. Don't need to talk loud. So the further away we feel from the person, the impact on how we speak to them differs. And this distance I'm talking about is the distance of love, not the physical distance. When we speak with love, people don't hear. When we speak with anger, people don't hear what we're saying. They hear only anger. Even when we are listening to someone else, when they are angry, we hear anger. We don't hear the content of what they are saying. And so somebody very angry won't be able to convince and bring about a change in our hearts. When we want to change a person, or when we want them to see another point of view, not necessarily change who they are, but acknowledge our point of view, when we speak with love in our heart, it will touch their heart. They may not agree with us, but they'll at least listen. Even if they don't agree, they will be, as long as they are not angry, right? If they're already angry, they're not going to listen. Because anger we're not listening. When we're angry, we're just not listening. We're talking, yelling, screaming, defending. Trying to get what it is that we want. So we can make a stand. We can correct. If it's not true, we can correct the other person. But the voice we use has to be completely devoid of anger. And then it's incredibly effective. The other person will listen. More likely than not. Like I said, as long as they are not angry. So, first question. Insult comes along and the first question is it true? And then based on that, what do I want to do about it? If it is true. And if it isn't true, am I still insulted? Then what's insulting me? Why? And do I want to make a stand? Is it worth it? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not. So I guess the second question, whether the answer is yes or no to the first question, is it true? The second question is, do I want to change, and how? So to come back to, insult is when we are seen as flawed, but more importantly, we ourselves are flawed. We see ourselves as flawed, and then how comfortable are we with the shortcomings that we perceive in ourselves? And so, do I want to change? And this is another very beautiful thing that I've come across in this journey of receiving insult and dealing with insult. Sometimes I've acknowledged something in me, um, and attempt is already being made to improve it. Yeah. So let's use cranky because it's a nice, safe one. So if I don't always try not to be cranky, but let's say I'm trying not to be cranky. And then somebody says, "You're so cranky." An interesting thing happens. Acknowledge, yeah, I know. I'm trying, I'm getting better. Maybe very slowly, but I'm getting better. When I'm actually working on myself, it's not insult. It's truth, it's reminder. And because I know I'm working on myself, because I know effort is being put in, there can be not only an owning of it, but it's not, there's still no aggression, or there's still no, I'm a horrible person because I have this flaw. Right? Those were the two reactions. Either we get aggressive or we put ourselves down. But when we're genuinely working on it, and it will come up again, and sometimes we might feel a little bit disgruntled, like, oh, I've been working on it and it's still there and they're still noticing it. Oh, how long is this going to take? And of course, we can have those moments. And then, we allowed to be a little bit disappointed, disgruntled, and then we'll pick ourselves back up again because we're genuinely working on it. So even then, the way we deal with the insult, it becomes, we might even be able to win that person over. And they understand, because all of us have shortfalls and all of us are working on them. Yeah. And so if I say, I know, I'm trying, of course the other person's going to relate. Mm-hmm. And it's also a reminder to me to, one, take responsibility, and two, to constantly work on it. So there's another very small snippet of knowledge that doesn't quite fit into this logic, but I think will really help each one of you deal with insult. When we were studying in the ashram, there was this senior, older than us. At that time, we were all really young. We were in our 20s, 21, 22, 23 when we all joined. And so she would have been maybe in the ashram for 10 years. So she wasn't old or anything, but older than us. And I praised her. And she said, listen, stop this nonsense. I said, lots of cultural shocks when you first joined the ashram. This was one of them. Don't praise, because if you praise, insult will follow, was her reply to me when I praised her. And I thought, oh. And then, so in the ashram, you don't praise. We don't praise. Because insult will follow. So you don't wish insult on anyone else, so you don't praise also too much. And it's an interesting difference between the East and the West. You'll see in the East, they don't praise too much. Now, why? This is the reason. Because if you praise too much, insult follows. Because the world is made of duality, praise and insult. And so if you get praise, it's insults going to follow. And then the other thing that I had heard in the ashram, which is another reason we do not praise each other in the ashram, Or if you do, you look at the other person with like, not really being my friend, are you? You don't. If you want to be someone's friend in the ashram, don't praise. Why is the second reason you don't praise? When we listen to praise, that's using up our punya. So punya gets used for me getting comfort, me getting satsang, me getting knowledge, me getting money, me getting love, me getting no need for praise. I want to use my punya to get more valuable things than praise. But if I listen to my praise, I'm using up my punya. And so in the ashram, if you praise, they'll say, don't use up my punya. It's a very different world when we live in the ashram. Oh, I miss ashram. And when we listen to insult, it uses up our papa. So if someone insults me, very good, that much papa gone. Right? What is she? The Premier of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, has resigned. And I was saying to someone the other day, I don't know how much papa from how many lifetimes she was exhausted with the amount of galis everyone has given her. Next life, she'll be born saint. Only punya left. How much galis she has received. Every time somebody insults, taking away the other person's papa. And so this is also a beautiful way to deal with insult. Like in the ashram, I loved this. I loved this way of seeing things. You get insulted, and sometimes, Guruji is a bit stern with us, or some random devotee visiting will make some comment, and then you're upset and you're crying, and you got in this horrible insult, and then 5 brahmacharis will tell you, but this is good, your papa's gone. And you're thinking, but it feels so horrible. Exactly, papa is gone. You can see that with this incident of Will Smith, right? He has insulted. And this other person's, never remember his name, poor guy. His concerts are sold out. And he has received so much name and fame. His ratings have gone, so his punya is big. Papa gone, punya came. How? Okay, and the third thing I wanted to talk about before tonight's talk concludes is attachment. So in this incident, Will Smith has acted on an insult, not said to him, but to his wife. And so this is an interesting thing that happens to us. What is attachment? When literally computers have made it so easy for us to understand attachment. You attach the mic to the computer. Computer, mic attached to become one entity. Right? Email, attached document. 2 things and you make them into one thing. What is attachment to us? These other people. Sometimes they're things and they're not people. But in this case, and more often than not, it is people. We see them as extensions of ourselves. And interestingly, when we see them as extensions of ourselves, we react more when something's being said or done to that person than when it is said or done to us, when attachment is strong. And so, like I said, Will Smith has been insulted before. This is not the first time he's being insulted. But when he himself was insulted, there is, I mean, actually, I didn't research and check, but he tends to have a good sense of humor. So you can deal with insult in using humor, or you can deal with it by ignoring. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. So, what are our attachments? What is going to make us react so strongly? And this is an interesting thing. Attachment's very different to love. When I love someone, and again, please, there is no judgment to this family, Will Smith and his wife. I'm talking more generally. Whatever their journey is, I don't know the nuances of it. I don't know social media that much. I don't follow it so closely. And this difference is very tricky about attachment and love, because so many of us have attachment, and this truest form of love is rare. In love, we're able to see another person fall. We will feel incredible pain that they are in pain, but we don't need to do anything about it necessarily. Situations, of course, differ, and sometimes things need to be done. But like in a situation of insult, sometimes you don't need to do anything about it. So I teach kids, and actually we've missed them in person, but very often at a camp or even in a Bal Vihar class, there'll tend to be some bullies. There'll tend to be some more soft-natured kids. And I'm clued enough as a teacher to know if someone's getting picked on, bullied, teased. Not bully, full-fledged bullied, because of course this is ashram. It may be just teased, picked on. Then I might do an activity, change the energy, movement in the room, and sometimes help that kid avoid a situation. And I remember once there was an assistant teacher with me, and I did nothing. I was here in the room, so nothing too bad could happen because teacher's in the room. But I didn't defend the softer kid. And the assistant teacher said, "Did you notice it?" I said, "Of course I've noticed it. It's happening right in front of us." And she was like, "But why aren't you doing anything?" I said, "Because what's that kid going to do when I'm not there? You think there's always going to be a teacher around? Or a parent around? No. That kid's gonna have to learn either to deal or to stand up or to, and I'm in the room, so nothing terrible can happen, right? It will be some comment, it will be some right? Can you protect this kid from every comment that's gonna come their way? And often, if a parent does, or if a teacher does, you make it worse for the kid. Because then the bully kid feels they've been reprimanded because of you. What am I trying to say? In love, I don't fight your battles for you. In love, there's this incredible respect and this belief that you will be able to figure this out. It's not easy to do. And I know there's lots of variables. And so it's not always easy to know if we're doing the right thing. But when I'm attached and I want a particular outcome, I'm driven to fight the battle for you. But when I love, I'm not after a particular outcome. And that's the difference. That's the difference. It's how much I want an outcome. Whereas if I love, I'm gonna love you whether you win, whether you lose. I'm gonna love you whether you praised, whether you insulted, whether you handle it well, whether you don't handle it well. You need me to do something, I'll do it. But I don't have to do it. And this comes from a much deeper place within us. It's a very wise strength. And it's anchored in the faith that each one of us have the strength and the capacity to walk our own journey. And that's where this love comes from. I don't have to fight your battle for you because I know you can. So I'll pause here for today. And I didn't explore each topic extensively. I've just touched on it. And I'll open up for questions. And since there's lots of people, I know you shy away from speaking, so you can type it to me privately on the chat, and I will do the best I can in replying if there are any questions.
Hariom Swamiji, I wanted to ask, sometimes if we get very consumed by anger or emotions at that time when we're insulted, is it okay to stop and kind of come back to it? That's my first question. And the second question is, how do we make our minds so strong and so still that in that moment we can find the right answer or find the most appropriate response? Thank you.
Okay. So the first one, is it okay if I don't respond in that moment? Of course, situations will differ. When, you know, like sometimes it's an interaction where you're not going to meet someone so frequently. But when it's family members and when it's people you do meet frequently and you have a long-lasting relationship with, it's definitely okay to pause, calm down, and come back to them. And you can also let them know that you're doing that, because sometimes if you don't respond immediately, they may feel ignored. and take that itself to be an insult. So you can say, I'm feeling too many things. I'm just going to calm down and then we'll discuss this. So sometimes you need to let them know. And if they know you well enough, then you can take that, you can step away and they'll understand that that's just the way you deal with things. But sometimes it's a very public, or it's a very somebody you don't necessarily meet very often and you're not able to step away. And then in those cases, the less we say, the better when we're highly emotional. Because emotional decisions tend to be the ones we regret. And how to get to that point of awareness that the emotion hasn't carried us away. Well, that has to be done on a daily basis. Things like our sadhana, where we sit down quietly and do our japa for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or we do our Hanuman Chalisa or whatever mantra. And what happens is when we do a mantra or some kind of sadhana on a daily basis, it becomes like an anchor for us. And so, like with a lot of the Bal Vihar children, because we'll do Hanuman Chalisa very often in the ashram. When someone's really, really anxious, then you just have to start Shri Guru Charana Sarva Jaraja, and already they like focus, like, and they sent it. But it's because you've chanted it so regularly and you've done it so often that it can bring you into a different frame of mind. It triggers, like it literally flips the change of our mind, because when we do it daily, we're in this peaceful state of mind. When we do it daily, there's faith and there's devotion and there's a sense of security and love. And then here I am very emotional and there's lots of things happening. And I bring my mind back to the mantra, and this mantra kind of anchors me and centers me and helps me to deal with the emotion. So in that moment of being overwhelmed with emotion, the only thing that can help us is something that we have done consistently over a period of time. Yeah. And mantras are incredibly powerful. It's not the only technique, but it's the one I would the most recommend. And if we haven't yet developed that as an anchor, then of course we start to develop that as an anchor in our daily ritual. And then the other thing is breathing. We literally breathe in so slow that you can't even feel the body moving. And then if you make the breath, that not even just, no, so slow that you can count to 20 while breathing in. That's how slow you make the breath. And when you drastically change the way in which you are breathing, your state of mind will also change. But again, there has to be awareness. And it will take 2-3 minutes. If it isn't something you've practiced on a regular basis, it doesn't work as instantly. So the mantra and the breath is the best way to center ourselves and help us calm down when emotions get the better of us. Okay, there's a question.
Thank you.
You're welcome, dear. I have a question. How about if you know you've been working on something, but the opposite person doesn't see it? Yeah, very often when we work on ourselves, other people don't see it. So let me just finish reading your question. Like no matter what you do, the other person sees you not for what you are, but not doing what they wish you to do. So they want you to behave in a certain way and you not behaving in that way, so they don't feel you have changed. So again, this comes back to that first question we ask ourselves. Is it true? Like, and you know, a lot of times when we are working on ourselves, change is slow. Change that lasts is slow. And people can't see how our thinking has changed. They can see only our expressions, or they can hear in our speech. And then as we change, that also does change. Our expression and speech will change. But we don't need another person to see it for it to be true. Because people also don't always see us for who we are, but they see us for who we were. Or sometimes they see us for who they want us to be. So because I know the person asking this question and I know the context, I can say that. On a more general note, the way people see us can help us see ourselves more clearly. But when there's a lot of history with a particular person, then often they see us for what we were and not what we are. Like I said, I know the person, so I'm replying that way. Any other questions? Knowing that breath and chanting is the answer to facing insult. Well, it's the answer to calming our mind down, not specifically facing insult. But there is already been a buildup of previous insults that have hurt you and feel more insulted, right? So we've been insulted in the past and then that insult is repeated. How do you work on the past insult that is triggered further by today's insult? So yes, things that have hurt us in the past, is it true? And let's say let's say the event's not true or the fact's not true, but we feel that they don't like me. That's true. Yeah. And so we hurt by it. Then again, I would come back to the question, maybe I love them or like them, and I need to work on forgiving them for not liking me. You know, sometimes we have to acknowledge what it is that we want. And we have to also acknowledge that if it's a desire that can't be fulfilled, sometimes we want a person to treat us in a particular way, or we want someone to feel a particular way about us. And that's a desire that's just not going to get fulfilled. And so and that itself is very painful. It's very painful to acknowledge that this desire for being loved by this person or being respected by this person, being accepted by this person is not going to happen. Then, but even though that's painful and if it's true, I have to accept it, then I invest my energy in healing that pain and forgiving them for not being able to give me what I want. And that might sound a little like, why do I need to forgive them for not loving me? It's because I want it so much. I want them to love me so much, respect me so much, accept me so much. And since they're not loving me has caused me so much pain, I need to forgive them for causing me that much pain. And then I can let go of wanting them to love me And then I can let go of feeling insulted. And so that's actually a longer journey. Mm. And that's why I said so much of insult is working on ourselves. But this crucial part is acceptance of what is true, and then doing what I can with the truth, changing it in the way that I can, which will still be beneficial for me. So I can't change them to love me and to treat me in the way I want to be treated, but I can stop wanting it, and I can forgive them for the hurt. And only when I've forgiven them for the hurt they've caused me can I actually truly let it go. Okay. What's the answer to others don't know what you are working on us? They don't need to know. And when I do change, they will see it. But our changing is not for others. Our changing is for ourselves. When we change, we don't feel insulted anymore. We feel more peaceful. So our changing is not for others. I do have talks on how to forgive, and they already on Spotify and my podcast. But if you're not able to find it, then please do drop a message to the ashram email or phone number, and I will send it to you. Okay, I think time is up. Om. Sarve bhavantu sakinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit kapag bhave, asato ma satkamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.